Good morning, viewers.
Morning.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. Diwali is over. As you can see, New York celebrated Diwali in a big way. The whole world actually celebrated Diwali in a very big way. Diwali is over. I am sure those who celebrated and those who participated in it enjoyed themselves, in addition to the pious and religious relevance of this entire occasion. Diwali is over, back to work. So we are talking here today. I have great pleasure in welcoming Dr. Bharat Barai, a leading Indian medical scientist, professor, and a cardiology in the domain of cardiology to talk about issues that are afflicting the communities we live in. Sometimes it feels that problems never end. And in management jargon, as we always say, the end to a problem is the beginning of a new problem. So, Dr. Saab, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Vibhuti. I do want to wish Happy Deepavali, even though it is over.
Yes.
And those who follow Vikram Samvat 2078, wish them the Happy New Year.
Happy New
A
Year.
slight correction. I am an oncologist, hematologist.
Oncology. Oh, my
My
son.
brother is a cardiologist and my
All
son-in-law is a cardiologist.
All right.
Okay.
So you are an oncologist. It's a wonderful. I know a couple of oncologists who have, cancer is a word which is, gives me a leeway to start the program. The society suffers from so many cancerous diseases, right? And cancer is curable now, right? It is.
Yes, in majority of patients,
majority of the
cancer is
case
curable.
is curable. Why can't we solve the society's problems? And I will address this from a point of view of the fact that, I'm a banker. I'm a private banker. I'm a corporate banker. We solve clients' financial issues and we advise them on things like that. You are an oncologist. You know that oncology, cancer doesn't discriminate between people. It has no discrimination between white and black, Hindus or Jews or Christians or Muslims. These are gender neutral, human neutral diseases. We cure them. Why are we not in a position to cure the social evils which have, in my opinion, and please contradict me or prove me wrong otherwise, most of the social problems, the societal tensions which we see in the world today is driven by religious differences. And while we celebrated the entire October as a Hindu month, Hindu Heritage Month. We had Deepavali, we had Navratri and everything else. But there was also a movement to dismantle global Hindutva. That's a very important part of the whole process, that there was a concerted move, deliberate move to destroy you and I and our faith. And that's what we must contend and contest. So when the evils of the society, the differences, the distinctions emanate from religious differences, how do we address that as aware people? Because in the 21st century, we all know that nobody has seen God, nobody will ever see God. Experience is different. How do we address that challenge?
As a professional, I agree that as a physician, as an oncologist, hematologist, we take care of every human being, irrespective of what their beliefs are or not. You're right, a cancer or blood disease does not discriminate between a Hindu or a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew. Yet, not all the people who are educated think the same way. An example is Dr. Zakir Naik, a doctor from Mumbai. And this man was full of hatred and venom, and he did nothing but to treat Muslim superiority and was participant in all kinds of conspiracies against people of other religion. So that's a shame on medical profession and on his own religion. Now about the Hindutva dismantling movement, this was the most ridiculous thing. Some of the left-wing professors who call themselves professor, I don't think they are professors, they hold faculty positions and they are so hypocritical and they are so double forked. Give an example. Currently, let's go back to the Hindutva movement. These people never tried to criticize all the terrorism that took place in the world by Muslim religion people. Now, I realize most of the Muslims, they are normal, ordinary people, and it's a small section of the Muslims that are creating the problem. 500,000 people died in Syria. This so-called professors never had any concern about it. There were so many people who were killed in Sahara, in Africa, during the Gingividia and other kinds of campaigns. So many people are being killed in Yemen. These people are never concerned. So many people are killed in Afghanistan now by Taliban. So many women's rights are trampled. The girls are not being allowed to go to the school. None of these professors, so-called professors, have any concern about it. They don't spend a time about it. And on 9/11, the day when almost 3,000 people were killed in the United States by Islamic terror attack, how do these so-called professors try to celebrate or commemorate 9/11? They try to talk about Hindutva as if that was the worst thing that was happening in the world and forget about what happened on 9/11. So these are all left-wing guys who are funded by some hedge fund manager. I think everybody knows their name. I don't need to bring his name. And so-called open society. These are not really open society. These are societies that are out to destroy Hindus and other people. So I'm glad that it fizzled out, because here is what Vibhuti I learned. Some of the people who are Hindu Karyakartas, they registered themselves. So as I understand, most of the people who had registered to participate in this so-called dismantle Hindutva movement were really Hindu Karyakartas who wanted to listen and see what these guys were going to say. So they could not assemble even 100 people to participate from outside in this conference. So that tells you out of 7 billion people in the world, they could not even have so-called 100 people participate. And most of them were listening to them to see what they had to say. So I'm glad that this so nonsense movement failed utterly. But our people who call themselves professors, instead of trying to unite the people, find something constructive, they are out on a destructive campaign. They were all out against Narendra Modi. They were all out against BJP. Now they are all out against Hindus. I don't know what has happened to their brains. Maybe their brains are wired differently than most other people on this planet.
Thank you for a very, very powerful opening statement that you made on this issue. And I see the point, and that's very important. One of the things that we do in the strategic management, as the saying goes, you never take your opponent for granted. The seeds of ugliness is one seed. It sprouts. We know the Ravan example, 10-headed monster, or the Rakta Bij example. We know all these things exist as an example in our way of life. We explain how it all happens. So that they were able to assemble less than 100 people is a matter of concern from a different point of view. That they got at least 50 or 60 to listen. That's okay. That's all right. But extremes, they do drive the middle. That video, those conference attendees, thanks to the technology, they will multiply like Rakta Bij. It will be circulated around the world, selected elements of that. That's what we have to be concerned about. However, what is also important, that it led to the uprising against in Hindus, that we are not that evil. That's the positive part of it. That has brought about a real galvanization globally. I mean, having done a couple of television programs on this, we also dismantled the whole thing. However, what is important is, as you rightly said, whether their brains are wired differently, is because there is a campaign against things Hindu and things Indian. And you attribute it to correctly. Maybe their hatred for Modi, maybe hatred for Hindus the way we are, successful in this part of the world as we are. But now they are playing, Equality Labs is playing the caste thing. Is becoming they are picking up elements. And it almost seems to me that they are awfully well prepared to play the game. One element here, one bursting of cracker here, they go to another area to do that. So there is a caste thing, there is a woman's thing, there is a this thing. They are picking up on items like our cultural sensitivity. They don't give a damn to our cultural sensitivity. Every Hindu celebration, which has a very defined purpose and meaning, is branded as a climate change issue. So yesterday, I mean, it was totally shocking for me that Indian Express, a national newspaper in India, put a headline saying that Diwali bursting of crackers will have this kind of an effect on the Delhi pollution. And I said, which scientist has begun to predict based on 364 days, Delhi is fine. But on Diwali cracker day, it is an awesome indexes are going to show up. Same thing with Holi, same thing with every other festivity that we celebrate. But nobody will talk about goats being butchered, cows being butchered on certain specific festivities. So I'm looking at it from this point of view, and that's my inquiry with you. Do you think that since originally religion was established as a basis of God's message, I'm telling God's message, right? Nobody has seen God. So it was driven by fear and ignorance. And the people, gullible people, fell for it. Today, we are living in a science world driven by science. As President Biden said in his entire lot of addresses, we will be driven by science. Is the Sanatan principle, which has entirely basis on science, learning, evolution, we have been evolving over time. Is that creating a threat to the religion as we know? And that's the reason we are getting attacked.
Vibhuti, as people get more and more educated, as they start thinking more for themselves, and as they are able to assert themselves, the religion plays lesser and lesser role in their civic life. It acts more as a spiritual guidance in portion of their life. That's what happened to the Christian society, how it was dominated by the popes, who were as bad as some of the imams and ayatollahs. And as the society became more knowledgeable, they rebelled against that. Unfortunately, that has not happened in the Islamic society yet. In some countries where the ruling party or the dictator is able to cage them, they have behaved. Example was Iraq. As long as Saddam Hussein was in power, he kept all those ayatollahs and mullahs and everybody in a locked up situation. And now those ayatollahs have taken over. As long as the Shah of Iran was there, all those ayatollahs stayed under control. Even in Saudi Arabia, which is a very religion-driven society, the religious people, the imams or ayatollahs or mullahs, they don't have much of say because the monarchy controls them very tightly. Same thing in Egypt. Even in Syria, even though it is on the other side. So when there are dual powers, on one side the politicians or the ruling, and another side the religious extremist, when both of them are controlling powers, that's why the problem occurs. And if you take a country like Pakistan, when General Jacobs, who was the hero of Bangladesh war, was in Chicago, I asked a question about Pakistani government. And he said, which Pakistani government? The one by ISI, the one by army, the one by imams and ayatollahs, the one which is civilian government, which government we are talking about? So in Pakistan, prime minister or everybody bows down to the religious extremists. Even though United Nations put those people on the proscribed list, they still roam around freely because the government is afraid to act and they don't have the basis. And every Friday, when you go there, this ayatollahs and imams, whosoever they tell that they are the only ones who have 1-800 line to God, and they tell people in the masjids or mosques what to do, and people listen to them. So unless there is some way, now, if the people were very educated, then they will say, Ayatollah, hey guys, go to hell. I know what is right and wrong. That is happening in Hinduism. Most of the Hindus, even women, are well educated. So they think for themselves. If that kind of thinking and revolution comes, where you separate out the civic part and the spiritual part, there will be a lot of peace in the world. People will go to the temples, people will go to mosques or churches and listen for the spiritual guidance, but leave alone the civic behavior, civic duties to education, law, and what is good for the society.
Very well said, sir. Very well. The important part is that I was, my opinion has been very, honest and straightforward. And I have said this to many groups, that Christianity and Islam, instead of fighting their jihad and crusade in more ways than one, must accept just one tenet of Hinduism, just one tenet. I'm not saying the entire whole gamut of Hinduism, just one. Acceptance and respect for everybody else. And I have shared this with my friends, and I say this, you look at our way of life is monotheistic polytheism. We don't have hundreds of gods. Just as you have your saints and apostles, we have our own series of avatars. And I say, James Cameron, thank you very much for making the movie Avatar, in which you showed that a physically handicapped soldier could transform himself into the other life by going into a machine. So the word avatar was sometimes, I think, the first ever time, as I watched the movie, I realized that he did a great favor to us to explain the word meaning of avatar, that how one can transform to a scenario. That's on the movie level. But in reality level also is what is important is that regardless of what you do defines you. It doesn't matter how many times you pray. What you do defines you. And I asked this question of a very dear Muslim friend of mine when he told me that you guys have so many idol worshippers and all. You don't even do prayers as many times as we do. And I said, look, it's very simple. Your guy prays 5 times or 59 times. Make your count. And after that, he straps himself with a bomb, goes and explodes in the market. 20 people are dead, 50 are injured. And Vibhuti Jha, who doesn't go to the temple per your definition, I don't do regular prayers. I do pray whenever I can. I'm passing by. I pick up 5 people, and my result of taking them to the hospital saves lives. So tell me, in your definition of things, who is Khuda ka banda here? Me or the guy who killed? So he said, yes, you are the one who is Khuda ka banda because you saved lives. So I said, that's what is important for us to understand, that eventually it is our actions that define us. So the point which is very important here is that how does religious ignorance in the 21st century with these instruments, these are the ones which opens up the whole world to us. Knowledge and information exists. How do we overcome the barrier of ignorance and foolishness in the people? As you as a doctor, we as a banker, because we have no religious denomination. A client's problem are his problems. His business is his problem. Making money is his goal. So we all assist. You do in a different way. How do we spread that education part of it towards them? Because otherwise we will be doing our job, failing in our duty, as I prefer to say. We will be doing our job well, but failing in our duty. Our duty is to save the community.
Vibhuti, as education spreads and there is freedom to think, like I can tell you in Chicago area, most of the Muslims that we know, including even Pakistanis, I get along very well with them and we talk. We get along very well. And I said, look, the problems that we all face are same. What is good education for our family, good shelter, good food, and good jobs? That's what, whether you are a Muslim or a Christian or a Hindu or a Jew, wish. So let's work together on those 97% of the things which are in common and leave aside 3% on which we might disagree. And most of them are pretty good. In fact, I have to give credit. The Pakistani community in Chicago area raised almost $10,000 and donated masks and sanitizers for COVID victims in India. I mean, that's the kind of spirit we want to see. We'll always have some political differences, whether it's related to Kashmir or other thing. And if I quote the words of Mrs. Golda Meir, somebody had asked her, the former Prime Minister of Israel, when will peace come to Middle East? And I think this can be applied universally, her answer. She said, when the Arabs start loving their children more than hating the Jews. So if we start loving the other fellow human beings more than trying to hate someone else, or I quote another famous Gujarati author, Ramanlal Vasantlal Desai. He had said in Gujarati, and I'll translate, when you start looking at a problem from another person's perspective, half of the world will be quiet. You look at your own viewpoint, but you say, let me put myself into the shoes or brain or thinking of the other person and analyze the problem, then you will realize his perspective. And you might say, maybe he has a point there. Rather than all the while thinking of your own point and say half the world will be quiet. So education, good understanding, ability to think, and then ability to act on it will bring down a lot of barriers, a lot of hatred, and especially if the role of the religious people is contained to only talking about spirituality and not about politics or everything else, I think a lot of things will start coming down. That's what Saddam Hussein did. There are many countries in Middle East do that. They say, okay, guys, you can go there on Friday, do your namaz, but don't talk about politics or anything. And they tightly control those mullahs and imams.
Right. No, it is a very important part, because in our way of life, religion and politics are separated. It is not intertwined. Christianity has done it with reference to creating a constitutional framework of governance, and the church and the other things are different. Although there are times when they overlap, because you can't change your essential being, who you are, right? But in Islam, unfortunately, everything is Sharia.
So I think really the revolution, social revolution, has to come in Islam from within, which is what happened in Christianity, that they had their internal battles, and now finally most countries separate church and state. And even those countries which are predominantly religious one way, take an example of Italy, almost a Catholic country, or France, but abortions are legal there.
That's right.
In USA, we have half Catholics and half Protestants, and the Catholics strongly try to preach about, not having abortions and all that. But go to the countries which are almost Catholic in Europe, and there it is all freedom, abortion or anything. So their Catholic values, even though Pope is sitting just few miles away in Vatican, is not allowed to influence this kind of social thinking and law.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he talked about very interestingly when Mr. Biden was there for G20, he talked about that despite Biden's pro-abortion rights, the Pope told him to follow communion and address more of the communion part of it. However, one thing is very important is that we have to be consciously aware And you talked about, you use a very nice word that 97% of the people have universal problems. And in our management work, we talk about this. There are universal truths, there are universal joys, and there are universal sorrows. We all enjoy the birth of a child in the family. We all want our children to be successful. We all want ourselves to be free of all diseases, right? These are universal elements. And if these universal elements do not unite us and we get divided by religion, then it is failing of what I prefer to call the dreaded disease of educated incapacity, which is most of the people suffer from. Let's switch to this from this topic, the role of politics. Now we are looking at America, the hope and aspiration where people, though even those who hate America want to come to America because of the opportunity the America offers. But the challenge of American politics today is that we are getting to know how crass and how disastrous it can be for the body politic of this country. And it's not throwing up a good example. So look at it post 2020 election. I mean, it is almost disappointing, to say the least, is the way how Republicans and Democrats are at odds with each other, and how the left religious liberal gangsters, and I prefer to call them at the expense of pleasing them, how they are pushing a particular agenda. In that context, you see the elections here in my Long Island, here in Nassau County, where I'm sitting, it turned red. Unexpectedly, all the results are in the favor of the town of Nassau County chief. Blakeman has won, defeated a very popular Laura Karan, who had put up so many taxes. You have a district attorney. She defeated a state senator who was the principal guy moving against swastika movement. And people like that, throughout the line, down the line, the entire Long Island is red. Never happened before. It happened in Virginia, and what was sad was the way they were building the narrative of education, trashing people's aspirations. It was rather sad. How do you see this election? People are talking about 2022 and 2024. How do you think it is going to affect and impact and shape up?
Vibhuti, as you rightly observed, and I share, the left-wing extremists everywhere, they come to power using democracy, and then they impose their dictatorship, whether it is China or anywhere. Let's take example of politics both here and in India. They abuse Modi, they abuse BJP, even though they had more than 350 seats in India's parliament and the laws were passed. Then they come up with a novel logic. Oh, in democracy, it should not be majoritarian. Wait a minute. Democracy is supposed to be party where majority people, they rule and they make the laws. So here, they constantly kept on abusing Modi. No. These laws were passed, but it is a majority thing, blah, blah. And look at very same guys in USA. The Democratic Party has a majority of 3 seats in House. They have no majority. It's a 50-50 split in Senate. And yet they want to pass the most sweeping tax and spend.
Right.
And there they don't talk about it. Wait a minute. Republicans have probably 49.8% of the representation, and you have 50.2. And yet you want to pass the more sweeping laws, spend $3.6 trillion, which will be trimmed down to, and it's talk about democracy. And when the other guy has 60% of the seats and the laws are passed by discussion, you say, no, majoritarian is not good. So it's a duplicacy, it's a double standard. When you are in power, even though you have 50-50 seats, and by tie vote cast by the vice president, you pass the law, well, that is democracy.
That's right.
And when somebody else has 60% seats, after full discussion, it is passed. No, no, that is majoritarian, that is not democracy. And Rahul Gandhi never stops talking all the time about, oh, there is no democracy in India. There is no democracy in India. Then how the hell Congress party came to power in Punjab? How they came to power in Rajasthan? Oh, that is democracy. When he got elected from South, Kerala, that is democracy. But when he lost in UP, Amethi, that is not democracy.
Yeah.
When the Congress party won, the voting machines, electronic counting machines were good. When they lost, oh, no, no, it is the BJP that programmed these voting machines. So this kind of double, and the people who are at center, I would say majority of the people, even in USA, are centrist. Senator Evan Bayh was the former senator from my state of Indiana. He used to say that in USA, approximately 28% are committed Republicans. Approximately 32% are committed Democrats. And about 40% or 42%, whatever math comes to, are independents who can be swayed this way or that way on their own independent thinking. And what you are saying in Virginia and what happened in Long Island is this 42% independents. When they say that this left-wing extremists, gangs, mafias, whatever you want to call them, they are smart enough to sense what game these people are playing. And they get upset at it and they vote it. They also say that the Democratic Party, in spite of having at least a working fixable majority, is not able to pass anything. And they say that all that they have done in last almost 11 months or so is just dance around, and the so-called left-wing progressives, they are holding as hostage. Where is the democracy? There is no consensus. Why can't they sit down and come to say little give and take? No, they will hold up the bill for the reconstruction. No, we will not allow it to pass. We will not allow it to vote on it. Now, what kind of democracy is this? So a small bunch of people are holding hostage, but when the same thing is done by the centrists like Manchin and Sinema, they say, oh, these are the two guys who are holding hostage.
That's right.
You are doing the same thing and you are accusing somebody who is practicing the same thing.
That's right. The politics of convenience and the choice of words that the left-wing liberal people use is remarkably divisive. And you have said, earlier you said about being the fascistic tendencies. They accuse the right of being fascist. It is actually the left that is fascist.
They are the ones who are super fascist, not just fascist.
So one of the things which worries is the language. And the language is very, very divisive. If you don't agree with me, that means you are a racist. If you don't agree with me, there is no policy level conversation happening at this point in time. You are very right. The senators from Arizona and Virginia, these people are being hounded, literally. There is a public display. And one thing that bothers me today has been bothering me about America, is the fact that how they choose to attack you personally and physically. So I know of a story where an Indian scientist working in Germany was very vocal about his pro-Hindu thought process, and he used to expose the Muslims and other people in the manner they are doing things. Do you know, he was working for a lab which was for Wuhan virus scenario. He's an educated man, got unhappy, expressed himself, his freedom of speech gone, and what Ilhan Omar is talking about, the blasphemy laws, Islamophobia should be global. Somewhere along the line, his Muslim colleagues in Germany complained about him, that he speaks against Islam, and he was fired from the job. The selective victimization of somebody who expresses his opinion is now a freedom of speech challenge. So people like us, we got to be careful, because we can easily be branded as Islamophobic. This is called bringing the blasphemy laws for the global application. That's the challenge. And I'm wondering, because we have very little time left, You are very active politically. You know probably all the five Democrat Indians who are representatives in House of Representatives. I don't see anything coming out of their mouth in support of Hindu causes or against those who demolish us or try to demolish us. Whether it's Raja, Ami Bera, Pramila Jaipal, so of course, no, Ro Khanna is sold out anyway. But then issue is that nobody's even asking. What's your
Well,
take
that's
on
not true, Vibhuti.
Okay.
We do talk in private.
Right.
I'm not going to reveal on
No, no,
television
please don't.
what we talk in private, but I think we try, many of them share the views, maybe to a lesser intensity than you and me share, and they express it in private, but they are worried about their contributions, they are worried about their votes, so they try in public life not to antagonize anybody.
But
While Ilhan Omar and
Oh,
Rashida Tlaib,
right.
they are extremists in their own way. And let me tell you, they are the ones who create Islamophobia by their very irrational, prejudicial hatred.
Right. The point is here is very important, Bharati. That important part. Privately, somebody, I don't want to name names, said the other day, I will give you my opinion from the back, but I don't want to be in the front. Now, it then doesn't matter. I can tell you, that's politics. That's playing politics. And you are a very open guy. You don't mince your words. So when you try to tell me that I have a vote bank to play to, that means you have now already slipped down into dishonesty. I'm not saying that you come with a sword and stand up to protect him. No, I'm not saying that. But when Ilhan Omar and Tlaib openly talked about and called upon Muslims to vote for Georgia senatorial runoff election in 2020, to this Islam's responsibility to vote for Democrats, I had tweeted then, I asked them that question, including the 4 or 5 Indian congressmen. What would have happened if Hindus had given a call to vote for X group of person or X group of people? What would have happened? We would have been branded by the same canard as evil. That's the point which I am trying to say. Does Ro Khanna, Pramila Jaipal, regardless of the differences with Modi, you can't, I always say, don't be against Hindus and India. That's the point which I'm saying. Raja Krishnamurti, he's happy. I mean, he's a nice guy. He seems to be a nice guy. He's always smiling and talking about, I did this, I did that. So that's fine. Ami Bera, I'm told that he has converted to Christianity, so it seems. Be that as it may. I'm saying this. Do you have the courage and charisma to make a statement? Ilhan, you are my colleague. You are wrong about this. That's what I'm asking. I'm not saying that you be, condemn, don't behave like Ilhan Tlaib. At least ask them a question as a fellow colleague. That's a wrong thing to do, to implore one community to vote for one person. That's the point I'm talking. I'm taking that part very seriously. I'm asking them questions all the time. They don't reply.
Well, they did in the presidential election too.
Right.
In exchange for getting something on the Democratic plank or Biden's plank. And by the way, Biden said during the May fundraiser, which was virtual, when he was asked about it, he said he didn't know about it. It happens that in large election, people write and the president or the candidate even doesn't know about it. But in exchange for that, yes, they gave call in many Islamic religious places to vote for Biden.
Right.
So, and they said, oh, we'll deliver 3 million Muslim votes. Actually, if you believe, there are more Hindu votes in USA than there are Muslim votes. But Hindus are thinking and they vote their own belief rather than call that all the Hindus vote one way. And that's the way it should be. People should vote based on what they perceive is a better candidate than because of religious calls.
That's right. I mean, I'm very strong about that. Just because I'm a banker, I remember once a client came to me. He said to me that I have certain amount of millions of dollars in a deposit account with you. Why can't you fund this project of mine? I said, your deposit and your funding of a project, they're two different things altogether. Just because you have a deposit with me doesn't give you a right to demand fund project X, because I have to verify and authenticate the nature of the business that you are trying to do. If you are trying to do drug dealing, sorry, I'm not getting you take your deposit also and go. I don't want to do that. I'm asking of Pramila, I'm asking of Raja, I'm asking of Rokhanna, you want to be a member of Pakistan caucus, you are welcome to do that. But you should be ashamed of that.
And by the way, Vibhuti, there are two things I need to correct.
Yeah. Please. I'm
Rokhanna
always
is no longer member of Pakistani caucus.
Sorry?
Rokhanna is no longer member of Pakistani caucus.
No, so that is an update, not correction.
Yes, that's an update. And Raja was never member of the Pakistani caucus.
No, I didn't say about Raja. No,
okay.
not right. Yeah, Raja is...
Ami Bera, I don't know about his conversion. Maybe I don't know about it, but I know his wife is not Hindu, but that's okay. My son is married to a non-Hindu, so that happens in life.
That's perfectly fine. So is mine. That's perfectly okay. That is, I married somebody from not from my own community. I married a Jain girl. So that's perfectly all right. So, there are so many things to talk about, Dr. Barai, and thank you so much for coming here, guys.
Thank you for the opportunity. And once again, wishing everybody happy Diwali, though 1 day late. And those who follow the Vikram Samvat, it is Vikram Samvat 2078. All the best wishes for the Hindu New Year.
So viewers, thank you very much for joining today. I hope I'm sure you had a great Diwali, and the lights will change. A new visual will come. The day will be new, and you have to be aware of what's happening around us. That's a very critical word in democracy. We all have to be aware of what's happening around us. And as the doctor said, we have to vote according to our conscience. We have to act according to the righteous nature of our belief systems. There is no one thing that is right. So thank you very much. Have a great weekend, great week ahead, and talk to you next Saturday.